So I hope my screen is visible to you. Okay, I'm slightly new with this. I'm just asking some people on on WhatsApp for their feedback. Is it visible to them or not? Okay, so uh, cashless everywhere or cashless anywhere. These are the names that we use. You would have also read about a lot of newspaper articles that talked about 100% cashless is coming to India, right? So these are different names by which we address the same new facility that has come into Indian healthcare and into claims processing. The agenda for today would be we will understand what is cashless everywhere, what is the process that has to be followed, what is required by a hospital to be ready for cashless everywhere. There are some FAQs that we will pick up, and then I am open to audience questions. Please feel free to post your questions in the feed as and when you have a doubt. Since we are on YouTube, there's not going to be much of an engagement per se. You can't come online and ask me the question. So I'll depend on my team to then push those questions to me. And so towards the end of my presentation, I will pick up those questions. So typically, a cashless process, we know it used to it works in a certain manner, right? So this only works at impaneled hospitals, and empanelment, as you would know, is a very elaborate exercise. It requires contracting by the insurance company or a TPA for all of the hospital services, and contracting would require hospital filling up a lot of information about itself in forms, providing a lot of KYC documents, and then there is going to be a lot of back and forth regarding negotiation of the pricing. That's how cashless works. But cashless everywhere takes a very different stance. Okay, today in India, cashless is about 55 to 60% of total claims. By value, it could be about 65 to 70% of the total value that is paid in claims. However, uh, if you look at say in my company, right, in Medi Assist, we are at about 70 75% of the total claims being cashless, and by value we are touching about 75 80%. uh, Now, given the fact that people are buying and having more comprehensive policies, it's again becoming a challenge for people that they have a very big policy but they don't want to pay that upfront and go for a reimbursement, and hence there is a need for uh, cashless. Just one question to people in the audience: are you able to post comments, or do we need to activate? Dr. Hari, please send me in the chat. So, uh, as an intro to cashless everywhere, it is a process that has been mandated by regulator, that is IRDAI. Back in September last year, IRDA said that 100% of claims can go via uh, cashless. I understand I need to activate comments. Just give me a second. Okay, I'm getting the feedback now that chat is working now, so I will restart the presentation. Sorry for the hiccups. Okay, yeah. So we are at the meaty part, which is introduction to cashless everywhere. It's a process mandated by IIDAI. That means starting September, it was advised that uh, insurers should enable cashless at non-network hospitals. In October last year, General Insurance Council came out with very elaborate guidelines on how this process is going to work, and a formal launch happened in January this year, where the entire industry built the process and uh, you know uh, workflows around how to make it possible. So, what exactly is cashless everywhere? It is a facility where insurer can provide cashless to policyholders at a non-network or a non-empaneled hospital. Earlier, cashless could only be provided at a network hospital that required an MOU to be signed between the two parties and a very elaborate process. And now, through cashless everywhere, for a particular claim, for a particular admission, the insurer can activate cashless in a non-empaneled hospital. How it is done? It is a three-step process that we will see in the next slide, and this enables a policyholder to get cashless at a non-network hospital. Now, when can it be done? The policyholder is required to intimate. I'm being told that the screen is blank. Just a second. I hope this works this time. Okay, cool. Thank you. So, like you said, the first part is uh, it works when insurers allow cashless to be done for a particular claim, for a particular admission at a non-network hospital. For this, there's a three-step process, and for this to happen, the policyholder or the patient has to intimate the insurer or the TPA 48 hours prior to admission. This is for all planned procedures. And in case it's an emergency admission, then in the next 48 hours from the admission, you are supposed to intimate. Now, once you intimate, then there are a series of steps that have to be taken for it to work. Now, what are those steps? So the first step is the policyholder to send a request to a cashless everywhere related email ID provided by their concerned insurer or TPA. Now, to send in this pre-authorization form, it has to be filled up by the hospital. It has to be signed and sealed by the hospital. So it's a formal request that goes from the policyholder to the insurer or the TPA concerned. As a second step, now because I have received, I need to now reach out to the hospital where you are going. And that is why I require your 48 hours. I will speak to the hospital and I will request the hospital, could you please give me some KYC documents? Okay, these are normally documents which detail out the registration details of the hospital, the banking details of the hospital, as well as the PAN card, etc. of the hospital. Along with this, a letter of consent has to be signed by both the parties and it is issued from the insurer or on behalf of the insurer by the TPA to the hospital concerned. So, letter of consent is the completion of the second stage. So the first and the second step together has to be completed in 48 hours for all planned admissions. As a third step, the pre-auth will be processed by your insurer or a TPA like any cashless that is processed at an impaneled hospital. So remember that this is happening at a non-impaneled hospital, non-network hospital, but that particular transaction right now mimics a cashless claim. Some of the points that hospitals should keep in mind is that this has to be initiated by the patient. Okay, that means the policyholder has to mandatorily send a request to an email ID that is mandated by the concerned insurer or TPA. So make sure that that is something that is done by the patients. On your part as hospitals, what you can do is figure out across insurance companies and TPAs what are the email IDs to which this request have to be sent. If you go to the insurer's website or DPS website, you can find those email IDs. Okay. In our case, that is in case of Medi Assist, we have made it simpler. Once the patient send a request to us to intimations at the rate mediassist.in, we then advise the patient to ask their hospital to then send the pre-op to us on a separate email ID which is meant for hospitals. That is called as cashless everywhere at mediassist.in. So we do not really bother a patient. They just tell us that they want to, go for it at a hospital, and then the hospital has to then start the process with us. Then the second point is, remember that it is a transaction level discussion. That means it's not an elaborate empanelment thing. We are going to talk to you regarding the cost of that particular procedure, when is the admission and discharge going to happen, and we will require some documents, which is the third part. Keep your document and pricing kit ready. Okay. Now I understand it's a new process. People are still learning about this. However, with due course of time, figure out what are the documents required by a different insurer company or TPA, and then keep that thing ready, keep that thing handy so that you can immediately send it to them when it is asked. Also, because it's cashless, most insurance companies and TPAs would like to have some discount from you because that's how cashless works. These are negotiated rates. Of course, there are some insurers who are not really uh, uh, too much bothered about discounts, but largely the industry would ask for some discounting, some preferential rates from the hospitals for enabling cashless. Okay. Post that, please ask the network team of the insurer or TPA who's reaching out to you what is the submission claim submission process. How will you send the pre-auths? Is there an email ID to which you should send later on? How will you receive an approval from the insurer or TPA? And after the patient is discharged and you have received the final approval, then after that, how or where do you need to send your claim for payment? And then who is going to be your contact person in case there are any grievances, right? So this is an information you should seek from the insurer or TPA whenever a cashless everywhere request comes to you. Now, this is how a letter of consent looks like. It's a very simple two-pager. I've just put it on the display to tell you that it is not a very elaborate contract. It's a very simple two-page letter. In this, it basically explains who is the insurance company, who is the hospital, and what are the responsibilities of both the parties. So, largely, what is the responsibility of the hospital? That I will provide a credit facility. I will send you the claim within so and so date, and the liability of the insurance company is that I will make the payment to you in so many number of days, right? And then, of course, towards the end, you will see on the second page what are the various documents hospital is required to submit as part of their request. Now we will come to the FAQs. I'm actually surprised by it is sort of coming like this, but some of the question are: do I need to provide the KYC document kit every single time when I am going for a cashless and everywhere request with a particular insurer? So Medi Assist, right? So if you are sending a request to me, chances are the first few times I may require that kit from you because this has to be submitted to the insurer later on. But eventually, as we get all the data points and the process evolves, we will not mandate that for the hospitals where already this process is established. Okay. The second one is, and I'm looking at the bottom left question. Letter of consent has to be signed every single claim. Uh, Depends on the insurer. There are some insurers who allow the letter of consent to be issued for a duration. So we could even issue it for a 3 month period or a 2 month period. But there are some who require it to be provided for every single claim. Okay, so it is an insurer dependent process. Now the third question is, I'm looking at the right top question. Why not impanel the hospital rather than doing this cashless everywhere exercise? Right? It's very complex. It has to be done within 48 hours and requires a little bit of back and forth in real time before the patient's admission. It could cause some concerns to patients. But the fact is that a normal empanelment process is very rigorous. and contracting has to be done across the services of the hospitals. We do not do for one or two services, and of course, it requires an offline infra audit of the a physical check of the hospital's location, their infrastructure, etc. Whereas in cashless everywhere, it's a very simplified process where a few document checks here and there, and we are going to provide cashless. However, my belief is that it will lead to more empanelments going forward because we will have more experience dealing with hospitals. Then the next question is, and this is a question that a lot of hospitals have asked me: can I charge my cash rate in case of cashless everywhere cases? Because had it not been cashless, you would have charged your same cash rate to the patient, and they would have gone for reimbursement. So from an insurer perspective, this process varies a little bit. Uh, so there are some insurers who insist that a discount or a package has to be given by the hospital for cashless everywhere. Uh, there are others who do not mandate it as of now, but my hunch is that eventually the industry will evolve to a point where we will require some discounted rates. So ideally, when you are thinking about cashless everywhere, please make sure that you have some discounts ready. Okay, move to the next slide. Again, a lot of hospitals are curious that when we say 100% cashless, that means is it mandatory for hospitals to honor whenever these kind of requests come? Uh, so it is not a mandatory process for the hospitals. Okay, it is not mandatory, uh, but you can always think of this as a business call. That means, do I want to increase my patient flow? Do I want to increase my patient retention? Because you know that you lose patients when you tell them that I'm not in panel with this insurance company, right? So I would rather advise you to think is it as a business accelerator for you, and do not really think in terms of okay, can I make more the same kind of money that I'm making from the patients, right? Now, the next question, again, left bottom. If cashless everywhere is not offered by the hospital, can patients still go for reimbursement? Answer is yes. So the top question and the bottom one are linked. So if you do not offer, patient can still go for a reimbursement, or say in the 48 hours period we were not able to close the request, patient can still go for uh, a reimbursement claim. We are, by the way, seeing some cases where hospitals, because they do not have the process set, they might be sending the pre-authorization, but they are failing to send the discharge documents on the day of discharge, and hence the cashless is not going forward. So in such cases also, uh, the patient can go for reimbursement because the cashless is not complete. The next question is there going to be any payment process difference for the non-network hospitals versus the network hospitals? Uh, no, the process remains exactly the same for all cashless claims, whether it is the regular impaneled hospitals or these are non-network hospitals coming via cashless everywhere. Okay, uh, and of course, I think the payment is the biggest concern here, because when it is a cash payment for non-network hospitals, patients pay on the day of discharge and they exit. Here, because it's cashless transaction, you will not get paid on the day of discharge. So normally, what happens in a cashless transaction is you are expected to submit the claim documents within 7 days of the discharge. The earlier, the better. Okay, and that's why I said, going back to the initial part of the presentation, you should ask the network team, what are the submission guidelines? Can I submit online? Should I send the hard copy? Different insurers, different TPAs have different guidelines on this. Please ask that. It will vary from insurer to insurer. Please do not have any assumptions around the process. So within 7 days you need to submit, and if all the documents are in order, then in the next 2 weeks time you should get paid. Now, what do I mean by documents are not in order? That means I, if I have not received the entirety of documents, think about it's an implant case, right? I will need the implant sticker, the implant invoice from you. So if you fail to deliver that to me, I will come back to you with a question. So this is going to be a query from me to you. I'll say that, I have not received the all documents from you. Kindly send it to me. So I will take about 3 4 days to come back to you. You will probably take another week's time to come back to us. So that can delay the payment process for the hospital. So as much as possible, try to send all the claim documents one shot. Send complete claims within 7 days from the date of discharge. So this is what I have from a presentation perspective. I will now take up audience questions. So I request my team to share the questions to me via chat. So there is a question in the chat: can medical management also be claimed in non-network hospitals as these are not planned admissions? Absolutely yes. As I mentioned, uh, if it is a planned admission, we will require a 48-hour prior intimation. But for medical management cases, we understand that these are all many of these could be emergencies, and hence from the time of admission in the next 48 hours, please make sure that the request is sent to us, and then we will come back asking for the documents that we require from the hospital, and we can conclude the entire process. I in fact do not know how to check questions here. Okay, I'm just going through the questions. Okay, so there is a question on what is the TAT for the cashless everywhere. Uh, I think there are two different kinds of TATs here. One is the approval for the cashless everywhere request. That, as I said, has to be done within 48 hours for planned procedures, and for unplanned ones within 48 hours after admission. Uh, Now, your claim submission while the patient is there, you need to follow, right? So on the day of discharge, you need to send it to the insurer or TPA, and we will take our time to process and we'll come back to you. So that is again as per the insurer that we sort of reply back. And the last one is the payment act, which is, as I mentioned, from the time of discharge, you are required to send the claim documents within 7 days, and the next 15 days from the time we receive the documents, we will make the payment. Then there's a question: suppose if the hospital is not empaneled under GIPSA, so can hospital take patient of insurance company under GIPSA policy? Uh, Very fair question. Yes, the request can be sent. If it is a GIPSA city, there also you can send request for cashless everywhere. What is the email ID of insurer to which the policyholder should intimate? That varies from insurance company to insurance company. I would suggest that when a patient comes, look at their insurance card, identify who is the TPA or insurer in that policy, and then go to the website of the insurer. On the website, you will be able to find the email ID to which such requests have to be sent. In case of Medi Assist, the patients are required to send their request to intimations at mediassist.in, and hospitals are required to send their documents to cashless everywhere at the rate mediassist.in. Okay, then there's a question around, just a second. What can we do for daycare procedures? Yeah, so see, daycare procedures are all planned procedures mostly. So in such cases, again, use the 48-hour intimation timeline. Ask the patient to send a request to their insurer, and then, of course, fill up the pre-authorization form. You can find the pre-auth form also on the website of the insurer or the TPA concerned. So you download the form, fill it up, and send it to the email ID that is available. So I don't think it should be a challenge for daycare procedures. Then there's a question on, is there any escalation metrics if a reply is not received in a timely fashion from the TPA insurance company? We haven't yet published any escalation metric, but it is a very good suggestion. I have made note of that, and in all the further communication from Medi Assist, we'll make sure that we will publish the escalation metrics. Do request this thing to the insurance company or TPA from where you are doing a cashless everywhere transaction. The next question is, if we are impaneled with the TPA and not with the insurer, in that case what will be the process? Fair question. So look at the card that the patient is carrying. Most likely, if you are impaneled with the TPA, you would be paneled with the insurer. However, there are some insurers who may have a TPA, but they build their own network. Okay, so in such cases, the the insurer is the key person to take care of the cashless everywhere request. However, you can send the request to the TPA also. So, for example, even if I have impaneled, but the insurance company is not considering you as part of their cashless network, then in such cases, even if you send the request to me, I will represent it to the insurer concerned, and we will start the process for cashless everywhere. Okay, there is a question on, is it applicable to dialysis? Absolutely, yes. Dialysis is a pretty planned thing, so it is pretty much covered. In fact, a lot of non-network hospitals and centers provide dialysis to patients at lower cost. I would encourage all such hospitals that kindly convert all of these patients into cashless everywhere. Then there's a question, where do we send the email? Is there a common email ID? I have addressed it already. Then there's a question on, once cashless claim approved for one patient under cashless everywhere, whether empanelment procedure completed before next patient. I've covered that, but I'll still repeat. It depends from insurer to insurer. Uh, by the way, when we provide cashless everywhere in one particular case, it is not deemed as impaneled. You need to look at the letter of consent. As I mentioned, some insurers would demand a letter of consent to be provided in every single admission, whereas there are some insurers who would say that the letter of consent could be provided for a particular duration, say 2 to 3 months. So, depending on the duration mentioned in the letter of consent, would be your cashless everywhere uh, eligibility. Next question is, if the insurer pay the non-network hospital on the cash tariff, it would be more beneficial to be a non-network hospital rather than network hospital. Yes, that is the biggest concern of all the network hospitals. They're saying, okay, it's a good scheme. But like I was mentioning multiple times during my presentation, the fact is that as buyers of healthcare, we insurance company and TPS would like to get preferred rates, something that would not be available to patients on a cash basis. So be ready for all of these negotiations to happen in the coming days, even if it is not happening right now. And chances are a lot of insurers, in fact, almost all insurers would reject all cashless everywhere requests if the hospitals are sticking to their cash tariff. Then the next question is, okay, this is also taken care of. Where do we send email for pre-auth? Like I said, in case of Medi Assist, it is cashless everywhere at the rate mediassist.in, but it will vary for insurer to insurer. Please do check on their website. Then there's a question on, can we accept patients from ESIC? if the hospital is not empaneled with the same? Very good question. Right now, the schemes, which is CGHS, TCHS, ESI, these are outside the purview of cashless everywhere, and hence these requests will not be entertained. Then there's a question on should pre-auth be sent as a package or open billing? I think that will be a conversation between the network team and the hospital on a case-to-case basis. Uh, I wouldn't make a generic comment on this. Then there's a question on settlement assurance. Uh, See, we have grown cashless over the years in the country, right? And that is because significant payment assurance is available to thousands and thousands of hospitals in this country. There are 43,000 hospitals who have got a Rohini ID, and that means that many number of hospitals are part of cashless network of one or more insurance companies, and they are getting paid. So your payment is assured. There are two things that you need to do very carefully. One is when you submit the documents at the time of the the initial process, make sure that all documents are provided. And second part is do ask the submission timelines and submission addresses, and how should you submit? Should it be online, offline? Get that clarity from the insurance company or TPA concerned, right? Because we represent almost everyone in the market today, all insurance companies, and so there are some insurers who ask mandatorily for the hard copy, and there are few insurers who say, I do not want the hard copy, I'm okay with the soft copy. So it will vary from insurer to insurer. Please ask that. And if you have submitted all the documents within the timelines, you will get your payment on time. Should not be a problem. There's a question on if we are non-network hospital, then how will they process the hospital payment? So as part of the onboarding for cashless everywhere, we will take the banking details of the hospital as well. So we need to create the hospital as a vendor in our system, right? You are a supplier of services, and therefore to create you as a supplier, I need to add some of your KYC details. I need to, for example, enter where are you situated, how big is your facility, then what is your PAN number, and then what are your bank details? Are you banking with ICICI or with HDFC or with Yes Bank or with SBI? What is your bank detail? All of those things we capture as part of the process. So all of these details are captured before even starting the pre-op process. Then there's a question if there's a delay in investigation report because some lab reports are received after 15 days. In a normal course of cashless, some of these things are taken care of. You don't need to worry about it. Then there's a question for cashless everywhere. Is there any specific tariff? There is no specific tariff for CEW. We will be guided by whatever is your cash tariff, and then we would want to negotiate on that pricing, or we look forward to some preferred pricing from the hospital, but there is no guidance as such from the insurance companies or TPAs on the tariff. The next question is about a situation where it's a road traffic accident patient, it's an RTA patient, and they're saying if the claim is denied. I'm sorry, the question is not very clear. Why would the claim be denied for an RTA case? But normally, RTA cases under the influence of alcohol can get denied if that is the question you are asking. Uh, so let me sort of make it slightly more generic question. What if a cashless is denied at the end? Okay, because that is the possibility. The uh, a cashless can get denied for multiple reasons. Okay, the insurer may need more background about the health history of the patient, right? So we want to figure out whether there is an incidence of pre-existing disease, and maybe the entire information is not available. So in such cases, the cashless may be stopped and the patient may be asked to come for reimbursement. Similarly, the cases where the admission is only for the purpose of diagnostics and investigations, no active line of treatment is observed, in such cases also cashless can be denied. So in all such cases and many other scenarios, when cashless is not provided, then you need to charge to the patient directly. Patient has to settle the bill to you, and where necessary, they can go for reimbursement later on. Okay, there's a question. It's a repetition, but it is slightly more refined. So it says, what if we are impaneled with the insurer, but not with the TPA, and the TPA demands tripartite agreement? So this is an empanelment related question that you are asking. Tripartite would be a requirement for empanelment, but here that is not the case. It is just a letter of consent that we will provide. So if you are not empaneled with the TPA, but with the insurer, and the patient is carrying the TPA card, feel free to send the request to the TPA. We'll pick it up, okay, and we will run the process. There is no bipartite or tripartite agreement required for a cashless everywhere request. However, I think do not get confused. If the request is, I mean, the patient is carrying the card of the insurer and you're already empaneled, then you don't even need to think about cashless everywhere. You're already empaneled. Okay, there's a question: in emergency situation, where can we get the pre-auth request form? It's available on the websites of all insurance companies and TPAs. Uh, Under the document section, you can find it there. What about the rate list with the hospitality paid and not paid covered? Okay, yeah, this is a very interesting question. It says patients in rural areas are illiterate, and so how it is possible for them to send pre-auth request to the insurance company? It's a fair thing. In such cases, send a request on behalf of the patient and mention that the patient is not tech savvy, or maybe they're illiterate, or they're not conversant with the English language, and therefore we are sending it on behalf of the patient. Feel free to do that. I think we can manage that. Then there's a question on how would we get letter of consent. So once we have received the entire set of documents, these have been processed, they're looking all fine, the checklist is complete. After that, a letter of consent will be issued. Okay, so this is the last point after which the pre-auth processing can start. Technically, when we issue the letter of consent to you, we activate the hospital ID in our system to receive cashless, right? So the letter of consent is a regular step in the overall cashless everywhere process. There's a question on if any package is there for procedures if non-network hospital. I couldn't understand the question, but I think it is same thing as saying that do we have a specific tariff? I think I've already addressed that question. Okay, so there's a question on. I've already addressed for GIPSA. That was the first question, but still it says we have a tie-up with Medi Assist, but we are not able to do cashless for OIC. I'm guessing then you are situated in a GIPSA city. Uh, we have given discount as per guidelines of OIC. Can we go for the cashless everywhere request? Absolutely. You can go for it. Let me look at other questions. Just give me a moment. Okay, there's a question on every hospital. There is the schedule of charges. SOC agreed. Uh, grade wise hospital. How can we confirm the charges of surgeries treatment? I'm sorry, this question is not very clear. Could you please clarify in the chat? This question reads as every hospital there on SOC agreed the panel TPA GIPSA grade wise hospital. How can we confirm the charges of surgery treatment? I'm not really able to make out what question this is. Then there's a question on which rates are applicable if the hospital is not on TPA. So as I said, this is going to be a negotiated rate between the insurer, sorry, the TPA and the hospital. The GIPSA rates will not apply in this particular case because you are not an empaneled hospital. I was waiting for this question. Is Rohini registration mandatory? Absolutely, it is mandatory with most of the insurers. If you do not have Rohini ID, I would highly advise that you should apply for it and get it done because this is going to be a mandatory requirement. Okay, there's another question. Once hospital has done the first case with the company, if there is a second case, again the hospital has to apply before 48 hours. Answer is yes, because it is a request by the patient and not by the hospital. Okay. In the beginning of my presentation, I mentioned that cashless everywhere it is a request of the policyholder, and hence that policyholder before their admission within 48 hours for planned admissions and within 48 hours after an emergency admission, they are supposed to make this request. So it is not at a hospital level, it is for the policyholder. Okay, so there is a question on what are the documents required to register under cashless everywhere. Uh, So there is a standard guideline of documents given by General Insurance Council. However, some insurers may require some more documents from you. So this list will vary from insurer to insurer, but mostly it will be your establishment's documents, your PAN details, and your banking cards. So these are standard documents that will be required. Okay, there's an advice that we should create a WhatsApp group where the network teams can solve or people can help each other. Yes, please feel free to do that. You can even ask the local hospital associations to facilitate this. Okay, so there's a question on after the intimation by patient to TPA, we have to send the pre-auth with the reference number of that intimation number. It's not like that because when the patient sends an intimation, the network team of the insurer or TPA will reach out to you. Okay, so there is no intimation number as such. Although in our case, whenever patients send a request, there will be a number, intimation number, because all requests are going to intimations at Medi Assist. However, you don't need to give that reference because network teams are going to reach out to you for the documents. Okay, I'm just trying to understand this question. For new empanelment, insurance can give any rates which is not acceptable to hospital, then patient treatment will be delayed in hospital. Uh, I think it's an empanelment related question, not relevant to the subject that we are discussing. Okay, this is a good one. There are some treatments such as infertility treatment that may not be covered by the policy of the patient, and yet they may insist to the hospital that I need cashless. Then in all such cases, please ask the patient to send the cashless everywhere request, and then the network team will speak to you, get everything sorted, and then the moment you will send for pre-authorization, we will ourselves reject the request, right? Because the treatment is not covered. So the pre-auth initial itself will get cancelled from us, and that in fact becomes much easier for you to convince the patient that this treatment is not covered by the insurance company, and so don't push us. Okay, so there's a question around there are deductions that happen at the time of settlement, much more than the approval given at the time of discharge. So this is a standard cashless process, and it depends on the documentation that is submitted by the hospitals. So it varies from claim to claim basis. I would not say that there's a difference between regular cashless process as well as cashless everywhere. It all depends on the evidence provided by the hospital. Okay, so this is again a very interesting question. After the implementation of CW, will empanelment of hospitals be stopped? Because I only mentioned that it is going to be a lengthy process to empanel hospitals. Then the question is, why would hospitals go for empanelment process? See, remember that uh, when you are empaneled, then there is not any back and forth every single time a patient admits. Okay, you anyways give a discount on the treatment, and once we have empaneled every single patient who walks in, you are able to provide cashless facility to the patient. In fact, you appear in the list of the network providers or the network hospitals, and it is my goal to increase the network count. So even if the cashless everywhere initiative has started, my team is still tirelessly trying to expand the network, because we believe having a network is far superior to doing a cashless everywhere request, because it is a time consuming process, and it is only for that one patient, and it is only for that one transaction. Remember that you are able to do cashless only when there is a request from the patient. You can't initiate it yourself. So hence it is very different. Whereas if you are impaneled, whether the patient is asking for cashless or not, you will take the card and will send the request to us. Okay. And also, I think price wise, there is not going to be much of a difference between a regular cashless as well as cashless everywhere request, because we will eventually define a pricing structure for this. Remember also that many of the hospitals would have filed their reimbursement claims with us, so we already know a bit of your pricing. Okay, there's a question on to whom to contact. There's a delay in the process. As I mentioned, please ask for the escalation metric whenever the network teams reach out to you. And I've taken as a suggestion. So from Medi Assist side, whenever we initiate the conversation, we will by default give you the escalation metrics. Yeah, again, good question. If the hospital is blacklisted by a particular company, can you apply for cashless everywhere? The answer is no. If you are blacklisted, that means cashless and reimbursement requests are not payable for that hospital. So, insurance company does not want to pay any claims for the treatment taken at these blacklisted hospitals. And we normally publish that list on our website, so patients are advised to refer to that list. And of course, they can always choose the treatment at your hospital, but the claim will not be honored. Okay, so there's a question on the pre and post hospitalization claim. How will the patient get the money? So those are all filed always as a reimbursement claim, even in the network hospitals. So there is no cashless facility for those claims. Okay, yeah, this is a very important question. Can any insurer or TPA demand money from the hospital to audit before empanelment? Answer is no. Uh, it is illegal, and we do not encourage hospitals to make any payment for empanelment. Empanelment is a free process, In fact, within Medi Assist, it's a very transparent process. Every empanelment request is digitally tracked in a central ticketing system, and we have now zonal teams, and those zonal zone teams are all changeable. So we have taken a lot of steps to make sure that none of these uh, uh, things take place. So I would highly recommend that kindly do not make any payment to any consultants or any middlemen or to any person who says I am from the insurance company or TPA and I will impanel you for so and so money. You do not need to do any of that. Feel free to report such a person or such an agency to the insurance company concerned. Okay, there's a question on what is the benefit of cashless everywhere for network hospitals. Really, there is no impact on network hospitals. Cashless everywhere is meant only for the non-network hospitals. Yeah, very interesting question. For cashless everywhere, how will we ensure the authenticity of the hospital? So there is a lot of verification that takes place physically as well as online for reimbursement claims that come from non-network hospitals. The same exercise will be done for the cashless in everywhere requests as well, and we are deploying technology to fast track this process as well. I see there are some grievances regarding the cashless process, and I think all of these are valid questions, but those are outside the purview of this session. We can separately take up all kind of questions in a session related to cashless grievances. So there is a again it's a repeat question, but if the patient is admitted in emergency basis and later the cashless everywhere request is rejected for whatever reason, can the patient go for reimbursement? Absolutely yes. Okay, the question is after intimation by the patient, approximately when the network team will contact the hospital. Uh, that will happen between 2 to 3 hours. Again, I'm seeing a lot of questions regarding the cashless process. Sorry, I can't take those up in this session. What are the prerequisites for cashless everywhere for hospital? Uh, Nothing much. As I mentioned, it's a three-step process. So make sure that the patient is making a request. So the request has to be initiated by the patient to their respective insurance company and TPA. And of course, your infrastructure should be as per the guidelines of the insurance company, which is minimum 10 beds are required, etc., etc. So those guidelines have to be met. And of course, you need to provide all the documentation supporting for the cashless everywhere request. Then that particular transaction can be done as a cashless. Okay, so there's a question on should CEW request be sent from patient's mail ID or hospitals? Please initiate it from the patient's email ID. Okay, let me see if there are any other questions. Amit Mishra ji, thank you for your kind words. Yeah, again, so it's a repetition of the question that in remote or tier 2 3 cities patients do not have their email IDs. So in such cases, kindly send it from the hospital email ID and mention that the patient is not having any email ID, or the patient is not literate, and hence you are representing the patient. For the email IDs, kindly go to the insurance company's websites. You can get it there. There's a question: is it applicable for optional procedures? Absolutely yes. So there's a question on, shall we ask any questions, any doubts to the customer care executives regarding the CEW? You can. However, I would encourage that try to uh, find or locate the network, provider network related people in that particular insurance company or TPA for your region. Okay, and so whatever questions you have, kindly send to them. They will be able to guide you better. I'm seeing a couple of people thanking me, and I'm really humbled by your presence, and thank you for going through this session. Uh, by the way, for those who are still online, this recording will be available on YouTube because it's a YouTube live video. So please, after this session, you can come back. You can spread this link with your friends, with other hospitals, or any groups that you have, so that it will clarify their doubts. And we will also keep on coming back to this link. So if you have any questions regarding cashless everywhere, please feel free to post your questions in the comments later on as well, and my team will try and answer those questions here. The other thing is that we plan to do these sessions more frequently, so we will do such sessions in future as well, so that those participants who could not attend this session can also attend. Okay, cool. I think I have answered most of the questions. Now it is just a repetition of those questions. But thank you everyone for making it. Uh, just for those people who missed out, my name is Anuj Jindal. I am heading the network, provider network for Medi Assist. I'm based in Bangalore. Uh, we have 11 branch offices. So you have, I mean, my teams are sitting across 11 branch offices. So feel free to reach out to those people. We Cashless Everywhere, a very successful initiative. My last request to all hospitals is that if there are patients who are not even aware about Cashless Everywhere, please inform them about this. Ask them to visit their insurance company or TPS website. They can get more information there. If these are corporate employees, you can ask them to speak with their HRs in the companies. They would know about it. Or if these are people who have placed policies, please ask them to speak to the insurance agents. They will be able to educate them. But we need your participation, your active participation in making this a very successful initiative. I can only tell you that uh, hospitals which are in panel and hospitals where there's a lot of cashless footfall, they see a significant increase in the admissions in those hospitals. I can tell you, business wise, cashless is good for the hospital. You see more patients. While you will think that probably I am not getting the price that I would actually charge to a patient, but the fact is that cashless is growing in this country. More and more patients have an insurance card, and therefore it is more important that you get impaneled. And if you're not impaneled, you have applied for empanelment. Use cashless everywhere as a process to gain more confidence of the insurance company or the TPA. At least I am looking forward to impaneling more hospitals through this process. I'm being very candid and transparent about it. We have some 5,000 hospitals who are in the pipeline who have already applied for empanelment, but for some reason we were not able to impanel because we do not have sufficient data about their presence or patient admissions, and therefore we have been slightly more conservative. However, I am encouraging everyone to send cashless everywhere request. As we see more business coming from your centers, we will take every effort to impanel you. So with that, we will end this session. Thank you for being here. and have a good day. Bye bye.